Yo, what's up, guys? Our last build was really fun, but this build's really strong. Just one-shot this boss. We literally just use our super ability and we one-shot him. Here's again a different angle. Literally just, we're nuking him. Here, we're gonna nuke this guy as well. He's in for a bad day. Sorry, bro. Then watch us nuke this salt mines boss as well. We don't kill him, but we literally destroy his health bar, and all we really did was use our super. Absolutely insane damage. Then I want you guys to watch this gameplay loop. We get to sit inside this dome and just spam concentration and our grenade and our super. If you guys watch this clip till the end, you'll see that we actually get our super up again, which is absolutely insane because it's only like a minute 30 seconds long. We're just killing everything, spamming our abilities, and this is actually a 450 light. This was a 450 reclamation. Me and my friend were two manning. Build that is absolutely insane. So much fun too. I love Pyro Gales. Super again. Nuke that guy. And watch me struggle on the little guy. So if you guys want to one-shot bosses and be able to absolutely spam Pyro Gales like me in these clips, stick around and watch the rest of the video. But first, if you enjoy this type of content, please give it a like. This build starts off with a Titan subclass Sunbreaker and the super ability Burning Maw. Burning Maw is going to summon a flaming hammer that's going to allow us to crush targets with the force of an earthquake. And since we're using Burning Maw with Pyro Gale gauntlets, we're only going to get to swing it once, so you're really going to want to use it for boss damage, and that's about it. Moving along to the abilities in this build, we're going to be using Rally Barricade, Solar Grenade, and Throwing Hammer. We're going to be using Rally Barricade to give us a form of cover and to increase our reload speed while we are standing behind it. It's also going to taunt nearby PvE enemies. While our Rally Barricade is taunting nearby PvE enemies, we're going to be using our Scorch Grenade to create a flare of solar light that continuously damages and scorches targets trapped inside. Scorching is going to be super important for this build. Moving along to our empowered melee ability, we're going to be using Throwing Hammer. We're not actually going to be throwing it a lot though. We're going to be pairing Throwing Hammer with the solar aspect Concentration. While sliding, we can activate our charge melee ability to launch a wave of solar energy forward, damaging and scorching targets in front of us as we leap into the air. While we're airborne, we can activate it again to slam down onto the ground and create a large second wave of damaging solar energy. And this wave will ignite targets when it hits them, and it does a ton of damage. And then for our second aspect, we're going to be using Sol Invictus. Essentially, what Sol Invictus does, anytime we get a solar ability final blow or we kill targets that are scorched, it's going to create a sunspot, and sunspots are going to help us regenerate our abilities even faster. They're also going to scorch targets, and anytime we enter a sunspot, we're going to gain restoration, which is going to heal us, which is really nice, especially when in the thick of battle and we're in a fight and we need to not die. Alright guys, now let's move on to a really super important part of our build, and that's going to be the fragments. First fragment we're using is going to be the Ember of Torches. Essentially, anytime we use our concentration or our powered melee and it hits an enemy, we are going to get Radiant. Radiant is going to allow us to deal with barrier champions. It's going to let us do more damage, and it's going to play into our ability regen, which you'll see later on in the build in the seasonal artifact mods. For the second fragment we're going to be using the Ember of Ashes. It's going to let us apply more scorch to targets, which is really, really important for this build, because we're also going to get ability regen anytime we kill scorch targets later in the build. And scorch is just really fun to, ignite targets and make things explode. So great little fragment right there. And then our third fragment is going to be the Ember of Tempering. Solar weapon final blows grant you and your allies increased health for a short duration. It stacks up to 3 times. While Timber of Tempering is active, we're also going to have increased airborne effectiveness, and this is the important part. Solar weapon final blows will create fire sprites. Fire sprites are going to give us more energy regen on our grenade, which is awesome. So we're going to be able to cycle all of our abilities even more. And then for our fourth fragment, we're going to be running the Ember of Searing. Defeating scorched targets grants melee energy and creates a fire sprite. So since we're scorching a ton of targets and we're going to want to spam our melee energy, this is really important. And it's just a great asset to this build. And then for our 5th and final fragment, we're going to be using the Ember of Char. Your solar ignition spreads scorch to affected targets. So we're going to scorch even more targets. We're going to create more melee energy. We're going to create more grenade energy for us. And we're just going to have our abilities off cooldown a ton, which is awesome. Alright guys, now let's talk about our weapons. So for the weapons in this build, you're going to want something that's going to scorch targets. My personal favorite weapon that is great at scorching targets is the Sunshot. Sunshot has a trait called Sunblast. Essentially, anytime you defeat a target with the Sunshot, it explodes into solar energy and it scorches nearby targets. It's way better than any incandescent perk out there, and it's super good. It also highlights targets that take damage from Sunshot so you can see who you're going to scorch. The other thing is, if you do not want to run Sunshot, I just recommend something with Incandescent so you can scorch multiple targets anytime you get kills with your weapons. And for your other weapons, you just want to use something that can deal with champions, and then something in your heavy slot that can do good boss damage so that you're not relying just on Burning Maw for boss damage. Moving on to the most important part of our build, and that is the exotic armor piece, the Pyrogale Gauntlets. Pyrogale Gauntlets has a exotic armor perk called Percussive Flames. Percussive Flames is going to modify Burning Maul into a single high damage slam that creates several cyclones of flame. Consecration also gets a cyclone of flame on its second slam, which does a lot of damage and helps you ignite targets. Burning Maw paired with Percussive Flames is actually on par with the Titan Super Thunder Crash with Curse of the Falling Star, so their damage charts are very similar. Burning Maw is a little bit more delayed and actually can do more damage because of the tick if you can let it sit there and tick it. But, you know, they're both good, tit for tat. For armor focusing, we're going to really want to focus on our melee and super ability, but more so on the super ability side. So we're going to focus our armor as a Paragon, which is going to give us a primary super stat and a secondary melee stat, which is going to give us around 200 super ability if we can, and we want to also shoot for 100 melee so that we can have that melee ability off cooldown as much as possible so we can spam Consecration and scorch as many targets as possible. Now, I wasn't running any particular armor set for this build. I was kind of just running it with whatever, and it worked really well. But if you were to prioritize an armor set type for this build, I would run the Lustrous armor set. 2 pieces of it is going to grant our solar weapons increased flinch resistance, handling, and reload speed anytime we heal. And then 4 pieces of it allow us to heal anytime we get rapid solar final blows. So it just synergizes super well with the solar build that we're running. But this build works fine without it. Alright guys, now let's talk about our armor mods. For our helmet, we're going to be running double hands-on so that we get more super energy anytime we get empowered melee kills. We're also going to be running harmonic siphon so that anytime we get rapid final blows with our solar weapons, we'll get orbs of power. On our gauntlets, we're going to be running heavy-handed so that anytime we get an empowered melee final blow, we get an orb of power. We're also going to be running melee font. It's going to help us with getting our melee energy back faster. And then it's also going to increase our melee stat anytime we use it armor charge. For our chest piece, we're going to be using any resistance mods that fit the encounter we're on. And then on our legs, we're going to run Better Already so that we can regenerate our health anytime we pick up an orb of power. We're also going to be running double absolution so that all of our abilities cooldowns are reduced anytime we pick up an orb of power. And then for our Titan mark, we're going to be running bomber and double distribution so we get increased grenade cooldown and increase all ability cooldown anytime we use our class ability near targets. And that's it for our armor mods. Let's talk about our seasonal artifact mod. I'm going to throw them all up on the screen right here, and I'm just going to go down the list and tell you what we're using and why it's important. So we're going to be running anti-barrier scout rifle and pulse, obviously to deal with anti-barriers. We're also going to be using unstoppable sidearm and hand cannon to deal with unstoppable champions, and then overload rapid fire just so we can deal with those overload champions. Then we're going to run flame fiber and freeze so that we can combine our solar strand and solar stasis siphon mods into one. We're also going to be running a rapid precision rifling because we needed something else to fit the bill here. Moving along, we're going to be running fever and chill. Rapid precision hits with solar weapons are going to grant us radiant. Rapid precision hits with stasis weapons are going to grant frost armor. We're really just using it for radiant here. Then we're going to be using elemental benevolence as our next artifact mod. Granting allies an elemental buff is going to give us class ability energy. So anytime they pick up a fire sprite or we grant them radiant, which we will grant them radiant, we're going to get class ability energy back. For our next artifact mod, we're going to be using refresh threads. Picking up an elemental pickup matching your subclass element is going to grant energy to our least charged ability, which is really, really cool because we're going to be melee a lot. Then we're going to be running Cauterized Darkness. Stasis or Strand debuff. Non-boss combatants take increased solar damage from all sources. We'll fight a lot of these when we're out there doing content, so this solar damage is going to be increased and it's going to be really, really great. Moving along to the next artifact, we're going to be using Elemental Coalescence. Defeating targets has a chance to create an elemental pickup matching your super. So essentially, we're going to get a ton of energy back from our elemental pickups. And then we're going to be using Radiant Shrapnel, dealing sustained weapon damage while radiant or defeating scorched targets with a weapon causes a target to release solar projectiles and deal damage and combat scorch on impact. So this is really fun to use, and we're gonna be doing nothing but scorching targets with this build. So we'll have Radiant Shrapnel active all the time. And then we're gonna be using Shield Crush while you have Woven Mail, Frost Armor, or Avoid Overshield, your melee recharges faster, and then while you're in flight or radiant, your grenade recharges faster. So we're gonna and deals increased damage. So we're gonna have radiant active all the time, and our grenades are gonna recharge faster and deal lots more damage, which is really, really great. But that's a seasonal artifact mod, guys, and that's the build. Thanks for watching. If you guys enjoyed this type of content, please don't be afraid to like, subscribe, and comment. Those are all free ways to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and if you guys want to see more videos like this, please click the video on your screen. Thanks for watching, and as always, peace!